Hello and welcome to Steven University. This is an odd one because we recorded an episode, and once again, the day after we recorded it, we got usurped with actual news. Cartoon Network hates us, is what we're learning.
It's a great episode, though, I must say.
Yeah, so what you'll hear after we do this bit is a Q&A where we took some questions from peeps on Discord, and Steven Universe related mostly, and some really interesting stuff came up. So that's coming up. Give us a minute. But first, we thought it'd be worth discussing a little thing called Steven Universe the movie. Particularly because this week we got a poster. Now that poster got some concept art. Well, yes. Well, I mean, what happened for that was one of the artists who worked on the show. She says, I can now show this off, basically, and you can see my progress. And basically, it's supposed to be her getting better at drawing the new Steven design. So yeah, a handful of bits of concept art sort of came out through that, through her. Nothing of anything that isn't already in the poster, but the new Steven design comes up. Well, so what I wanted to clarify, first of all, for those who are wondering, you're not going to do a whole episode on the poster? I think if this was the only thing we were going to get for a while, we probably would. But we're getting a trailer. By the time this releases, there'll be a trailer 3 days away, 4 days away.
Yeah, exactly.
Waste of time.
Just quickly. And also, we've recorded a whole episode and are about to do a mammoth Nothing But Static. So just overall headline thoughts. I think the big thing is, it looks like there's a time jump, Daniel.
Yes, it does indeed. I mean, the biggest thing for most people has been that Steven has a neck now, and that's weird.
You know what, though?
Even Rebecca Sugar in her post put, and I can finally draw Steven with a neck.
Wow. You know what, though? For me, the most, in a way, I was like, oh, he looks older. Oh, maybe there's a time jump. Ooh, I wonder what older Connie looks like and whether they've aged up everyone in the townies and did it like I immediately moved on from Steven. But older Steven's design looks cool. Looks great.
Yeah, I like it. I think that what they've done, which is clever, is they've kept his core color scheme but changed it, like around. Sorry, I thought I'd have more time to finish swallowing a bite of biscuit I took when you were speaking.
Well, I think you should have enough respect to not eat, you know.
No,
but it's fine. It's up to you.
There's a biscuit in front of me.
There's no time, Dan. There's no time for sassy tangents. Yeah, I love that. But knowing Steven Universe, though, I almost want the episode when he decides to do that switch. Like, when he's like, I'm going to wear a jacket from now on.
I've got to assume. So the basic premise of the shirt has always been that it was merch from when, Mr. Universe was about doing his music. I like the idea that he never made the pink one in bigger sizes. So Steven's had to upgrade to a blue one.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice idea.
And he's got like a varsity jacket on, which is like technically a thing in America linked to like high school. I don't think he's going to school.
No, it makes me feel a lot better about but Connie could be going to school more, and that could be causing conflict.
Yeah, easily.
I like that this potentially means it makes me feel a bit better about the end of last season feeling like a series finale, because at least they've potentially had 5 years, whatever, of peace, of no war, of all of that sort of stuff. And that makes me feel good.
Most people are estimating it's just a year or two.
That's hell of a growth spurt, but yeah, maybe.
He's not. I don't. In that poster, he looks much bigger. But I must say, in the concept art, it's not as big a difference.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, Rebecca Sugar's post on the poster said, when I turned 30, I was gearing up to write the musical. Today I turned 32. This is the best birthday gift I could ask for. I can finally draw Steven's neck in public.
Wait, so she was gearing up to write the musical 2 years ago?
Correct.
Jesus.
Which actually, can I just say, confirms my theory and the reason I asked Zach that question when we met him. I am now 100% sure that the voice clip in the Your Mother and Mine preview they released, which was like, I'll link it below, unless I forget again, in which case someone on the Discord will yell at me, but I probably will remember this one, because this helps prove what I was trying to get at. that it was Steven Universe the series so far, and they released it just before Your Mother and Mine. It was a recap video on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, and it was Steven's voice, but it sounded significantly older.
Every time I learn something new, I still have so many questions. Wish I could talk to my mom. I want to live up to her motto, to protect my friends, to lead the Crystal Gems. She left this job to me, and I know I can do it. We can all do it. Together.
We now know why. We now know why Zach was cagey when we asked him. We also now can maybe use that as a benchmark for what he's going to sound like in the new series. I've been back and listened to it since this poster came out, and it's made me quite excited.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What do we think of? The other two things that have come out of this poster: the villain, first of all, of those two. What do we think into the design of the villain?
I think she looks cool. It's weird because ever since the shadow of her, that's kind of the design in my head. I, in a way, looked more on Steven and everyone else, and actually the poses feeling very like it almost looks like they're in the middle of song, more than the villain's design, because that's what I had in my head. It's interesting that is that a gem? Is that, and it's very similar to Rose's gem, and that's all intriguing. Yeah.
I mean, it's a heart shape, but it's upside down. We got that impression. I mean, a lot of people assumed from the little teaser that the heart-shaped gem thing we were seeing swirl around was this gem's gem. But having that confirmed is nice. She's got very menacing eyes. And just a general mischievousness about her. There's something aquamarine-y about her that I'm liking as a vibe. I do think there's a chance that we're getting that crazy gem that I sort of theorized.
That would be awesome.
What do you think about the changes to Beach City then? So if you zoom in on the temple, there's a new structure in the temple. There's looks like a biodome sticking out of it, and it looks like a tree or something is growing off the old arm that fell off. So obviously Bismuth has finished repairing the other half of the temple, but then on the left-hand side of them in the poster, and I'll try and zoom in on it on this point in the video. There's what I can only describe as what seems to be the starts of a little gem town.
Which I thought was awesome. I think the notion of it being a gem town is obviously very exciting. Because again, what most excited me was, okay, cool. Time has passed. We don't need to see them deciding to build a gem town. They've just got a gem town. Usually I don't like time skips that much because I'm like, well, what about all the story we missed seeing? But I think this sets up a time skip where they can tell better stories with the skip than they could tell doing that time period. And that's the most exciting way to do it. And all of the designs look wicked and lend themselves to that notion, which is exciting for me.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm with you. I think part of my excitement when I saw this was just the problem is that here's a downside. Because when I thought about a time skip happening, I sort of assumed the major time skip was going to happen between the end of the movie and the start of the next series. What concerns me slightly here is when you do a time skip, there is a certain amount of let's explore the world and see how it is now. I don't know if I want a huge portion of the movie to be what's happening with checking with this person and what's happening with this person. And
that's the advantage of it being a song. A musical. You could do it in a song.
Oh, you could do one. You could open it with a song called "How Far We've Come" or something, and it's Steven singing about how much has changed.
It's been 60 days of peace. It's been, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. You've instantly made me feel better about that. And now the song has to be
no longer coming down. The gems have got a town. I think
it definitely has to be called "How Far We've Come." I don't know why. It just does.
There you go. See. So yeah, no, I'm not too worried about that for that reason.
Yeah, you've fixed that in my head. So yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on here.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, and I'm pumped. I'm pumped for the trailer. I think it's a bold move. I love that they're releasing this before Comic-Con. They're going into Comic-Con with something they could have released at Comic-Con. That makes me go, what you got planned for Comic-Con? So I'm pumped about that.
They kind of did that last year too. I remember they didn't actually. No, they did probably what you were imagining they should have done with this poster. When people got to Comic-Con, the panel was on like the Friday, but I think the first day you can walk the floor is the Thursday, and there was a Steven Universe booth Cartoon Network had set up, and in it, on a screen, was a white image, and then White Diamond's eyes flickered open.
Oh, cool.
So there was that was the first hint we had that White Diamond was coming, like it's soon as well. And then obviously the next day at the in the panel itself, they showed Legs from Here to Homeworld, where we actually get the full reveal of White Diamond. And I think this is probably what they could have done here if they'd wanted to have this poster up at the booth, let that go viral the day before, build up hype for the trailer the next day. You're right. With releasing this a week ahead of even that, makes you sort of go, well, then what the hell have they got like planned for Comic-Con? It's certainly exciting.
I feel like, and maybe it's because like my big excitement's at this and Marvel, and obviously today the Russo brothers put up a teaser video that just flashed the date of the Marvel panel, which is incredibly exciting because I think a lot of people assumed they were done with Marvel.
New Avengers.
And it seems a bit mean if it's not them and that. What I like is the talk around Comic-Con a few weeks ago was DC aren't going to be there, the big boys aren't going to be there, Comic-Con dying, and it feels kind of like actually Comic-Con this year is about Steven Universe. And I know I can't remember the name of the two shows, but Netflix are taking two shows that haven't aired yet to Hall H, and it feels like it's actually a bit more of the traditional excitement for Comic-Con. Do you know what I mean? Rather than
I'm on board with that.
The Big Bang Theory being there and like all of that sort of stuff. And I think I feel like there's a lot of really positive buzz around Comic-Con this year. And again, it might just be connected to the fact that arguably is Doctor Who there as well. If Doctor Who's there, then you got the trinity of my geek interest, I guess. But yeah, still.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. I think it is starting to go back to maybe a more traditional, because I think it got kind of taken over by these big panels over the last, sort of 5-10 years. And I like the idea that they might go away so that we can sort of focus on the smaller, more interesting stuff again. I'd be 100% behind that. That'd be my dream scenario.
I think the most exciting stuff that's going to come out of Comic-Con will be trailers for shit people didn't realise was coming, I think.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Like this. There will be people that might not have realised this is coming,
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think that's certainly a likely scenario. To give some context as well, I probably already put it on the screen, but the concept art that we were referring to earlier came from the Twitter of Nicole Rodriguez, who Schnickles, SHNIKKLES on Twitter. Schnickles. And she has put up multiple sort of renditions of the of that. It's also one of the little things that's been confirmed, Chris, before we go, is I'm going to read you the text that they've released for the panel on the Cartoon Network website. I think this one comes from, with an image, because they're doing karaoke, by the way, at the booth this year. That's going to be fun. All weekend you're going to be going to the Beach City stage to sing. That's a fun idea. I assume Steven Universe songs. But then when they put out that information, they put out another description of the panel itself, and it says they'll answer your burning questions about the Battle of Heart and Mind special, perform a few new songs, and present the worldwide debut of the official trailer for the Steven Universe movie. So my repeated theorizing about new songs being played seems to be accurate.
Coming true.
Seems to be. That description, it uses the word new songs. So I don't see any way that's anything else. So...
cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Is it worth saying, because we didn't, just forewarning now, us getting that episode up for Tuesday requires Dan and I to both be free on only 2 slots. We've got 2 chances because of circumstances, so it shouldn't be Wednesday, but just as a forewarning, if we miss those 2 slots, basically Sunday night or Monday night, it might be Wednesday.
Yeah, basically Comic-Con is happening the weekend. Chris is at a wedding, and it's made it very awkward for us to find time. I mean, I'm working as well, so it's like it's between the two, but that's made it.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, it's fair enough me being. I feel guilty now for attending a wedding. Like,
no, not what I was going for at all. I just meant that was we always have my work to go around. The reason it's extra hard this time is because you're also busier at the weekend than you would normally be. That's fair to say.
Yes, yeah.
And because of the timing of it being airing on a Friday, the trailer. By the time the trailer airs, Chris will no longer. And it's not even a wedding that's happening like down the road from his house. This is a wedding that's happening, further afield. So he's going to be out of the area and in a hotel by the time this trailer even probably airs. So it's like we've got to wait.
We've got
to wait till you're back, basically, at the best.
Yeah. So usually we would like Dan says we're often working around his work, but usually that's more achievable my end than it is this weekend. So we shall. So I'm just forewarning. We're hoping for Tuesday. If it doesn't appear Tuesday, we will check Twitter and we'll
obviously
let you know when it is
the next
appearing.
episode will cover everything from Comic-Con. The goal is to have it a week from today. So fingers crossed. But if it isn't, if it is 24 hours later than that, apologies. But it's better than not having it at all or having to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the other thing. Of course, if it works out that the Sunday night is our only slot, we've also got to factor in time for me to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a trailer though. Yeah. I don't know how.
I suppose you could watch the full panel, couldn't you? And I could watch it at a later day, but you could give me all.
You're talking about the full panel. Sorry. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, but if need be, you can digest that. But we will work that out when we know your schedule.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to say on with the podcast and point you in the direction of past Dan and Chris, who are unaware of
those naive fools. They don't even know there's a poster coming.
No idea. Naive idiots. So take it away, past us. Shrug. Hello and welcome to Stephen University, the ever-shifting podcast this week, where we had the loosest possible ideas, and then you guys ended up accidentally deciding for us what we were going to do.
Yeah, see, I had and I do think we should do this at some point, and maybe we'll start today with this question. But I had a question in mind, and the original intention was just to ask that question and see where we go. And I do want to do that at some point, but then I don't think at the point that I think I got all your messages at once, and you were like, "Oh, let's ask the peeps." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And we asked the peeps, and they came back with loads of stuff. So instead, we're doing questions this week and next week. And at some point, not next week. We got questions, Comic-Con, questions, and then at some point we will do the one question and just see where we go.
The loose episode. Yeah, because I think what happened was, so Chris said we'll start with a question, we'll just sort of see what we got. I was like, that's a great idea. And I was like, as a backup, this is my thinking for those wondering, let me put it out to just the Discord, because, get a couple of bonus questions, bank them. If we don't get to them, we don't get to them. If we do, or if we run out of stuff to say about the one question and the podcast is 10 minutes long, we've got something to go to. It's like it was just hedging our bets a little bit. It was just like let's be a little bit organised and prepared for the possibility that one question thing won't work. So let's have some extra questions we can discuss. That way.
Because of all our previous difficulties tangenting.
Precisely. Precisely. So I'm thinking that'll give us some structure and focus if it gets too out of hand, right?
Yeah.
But so I asked that question to the Discord and turned my phone off. Essentially, I was otherwise engaged. I basically locked it, left the room, was doing something else, came back, checked it. I was not disappointed. A lot of response. You guys are mental, and I love you. Like what a great. You expect one or two responses, and suddenly you've got like dozens. So what we'll do.
I was
going to say, what we'll do for those of you who aren't on the Discord and therefore missed the chance to ask a question, we're gonna cover you guys too. What we're gonna do is, if you have a question and you listen to this going, "Oh, I wish I'd had a chance to ask my question," don't worry, stick it in the comments of this video with hashtag podcast question, so I can decipher just people wanting response in the comments from people actually wanting the question answered on the podcast. Hashtag podcast question in the comments below, and we will make note of it and come back to them Not the next episode after this, because that's going to be Comic-Con stuff, but the episode after that we'll do a second part to this, where we get the YouTube people's responses and questions. There we go.
There you go.
Covers everyone. And if you've already asked a question this week, you're welcome to ask again. But you know,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So
make sure it's a good one, because otherwise you're just being greedy for no reason.
But we got some fun ones. I had a quick look through them, but I didn't think too hard about them.
I very purposefully did that do that as well, because I like the idea of doing it on the spot. Yeah.
Do you want to hear what my loosey goosey question would have been? You want to start with that, or go straight to a Discord?
Well, we can start with that. But if you thought that had enough to go to give us a whole episode, do you not save that question?
It possibly does, but it's also probably something you need to think about. It's not really one you can answer on the spot. I'll give you the question, and then you decide. Right. So
Chris asks on the Discord.
They announce that they're making a live-action Steven Universe movie.
Oh.
And everyone loses their mind. Everyone's like, no, it's going to be exactly like M. Night Shyamalan's fucking Last Airbender movie. It's going to be bad. Don't do it.
Right.
And then the studio comes out and they go, don't worry, guys. We've hired Dan. He does a podcast. He's got opinions. What are some of the decisions you would make in charge of that project?
Brilliant. Tell you what, we're going to use this right now as a tease. That is a future episode of this podcast. We're gonna figure it out.
I'm gonna give some thought to it.
I'm gonna put some thought into it. I'm gonna give you a rough 3-act structure of how the movie would function, story wise.
Cool.
Who the focus would be, how the plot would play out. Make it a little writing experiment. And you can do the same if you like, Chris, and we can.
Well, will that be a bit hard to keep track of? I think
the movie.
But I think that should be 2 separate episodes then, because I think it will get a bit complicated if it's bad enough when we're doing rankings and have to keep track of who's
That's a really good point. Yeah, okay.
So, yes, we'll do it separately. You can go first, and then I'll do mine. I might take mine less seriously than you. Like, who are you casting?
Well, I was recently...
Vinnie Jones.
Recently, there's a guy on YouTube, I forget his name. He did that What If Wes Anderson directed the X-Men YouTube video that got a lot of, it went viral, a couple years back. Okay. He also does like video essays and stuff, and they're really good actually. Yeah. He did a really great series you'd love actually, Chris, on the Marvel movies and why even though they're all good, there is something oddly cold and uniform about them, and he couldn't place his finger on it, and then he breaks it down as to why that might be. And it's coming from a place of love because he really enjoys them. But there's also there's a niggling thing about them that it feels too uniform, and he can't quite put his finger on why. Something about this Marvel machine is creating slightly more homogenistic films than maybe they should be, and it's really fascinating. And he talks about the ones that break away from that, but he talks about the ones that are very much a victim of that. And he compares Whedon to the Russos. It's a great little. I'll send you the link later. But he also did
Does he cover the fact that because the Honest Trailers brought this up? There's kind of no real. I know this sounds stupid, but there's no sex. There's relationships, but there's if you even think about, there's no great MCU love story. Pepper and Tony to some degree, but if you think about it, they were she worked for him. They were briefly together, then they split up, and then in 2 scenes we have them back together. Like, do you know what I mean? There's no Jim and Pam. There's nothing like that.
I can't remember if he brings that specifically up. It's a long video. It's like an hour and a half, I think, between the 2 parts, 3 parts. But the final part actually is an interview with the actor that plays Arthur on The Tick, talking about the state of superhero content and they're both big fans, and it's very passionate discussion, but it's very interesting. I'll send you the link later, Chris. Anyone who wants to, I should look this guy fucking up, really, shouldn't I? So I can actually say his name on the podcast. But he did a video called "Rewriting the Matrix Trilogy."
Okay, cool.
And he basically took it upon himself as an experiment he wasn't allowed to just do something different. He had to use all the elements that were there, but he had to find a way to make the Matrix sequels work.
Right.
And it's fascinating, and he does a really good job. And his ideas are fantastic. Okay, so it's Patrick H. Willems is his name, and one is Rewriting the Matrix sequels. It's a 40-minute video. It's absolutely brilliant. He breaks it down, but I will treat it almost as seriously as he does.
Cool. Yeah, no. And then I will do the same as a part 2 to that at some point. Cool. I thought it was a good question. Sweet.
That's a great question. That's a wonderful question. I honestly, what I thought you were going to say is they announce Rebecca Sugar's involved. Does that make a difference? I was very surprised when my name came into that.
Well, and just that's
very
more. I think, more probing. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. Good. Last week we didn't know what we were going to do, and now we have 5 episodes of this podcast planned. So there you go.
Yeah. There you go. And then
we'll
do one of those beloved revisits.
Yeah, 6 episodes, including a revisit.
Right, so let's get to the questions. So I've got quite a few.
By the way, just to state, because I don't think we did it off air, we're still going to do those revisits, because Dan and I both love doing them. So
yeah, we have a lot of fun doing them, and I think the core people listen to this podcast enjoy them, and I think I think there are key episodes like Rose's Scabbard that always come up that people are going to be very excited for us to get back to because they weren't satisfied necessarily with our analysis the first time. So if a lot of people felt
why
like
did we do a bad job on the first part of that?
Well, a lot of people didn't think that we liked it enough. Basically, they thought it was a much better episode than we gave it credit for, and they think in the hindsight of the recent revelations, we might appreciate it more.
Okay, what's the one where we started drinking? Because we got a few complaints about that one as well.
Yeah, we'll have to go. I think that was episode 100.
Possibly, I can't remember.
I think that was beta. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Or bismuth, maybe. Anyway, let's go to it. So, question 1, the first one that came in that I saw at least, was from IG64, who says, to both, what is the next fusion you want to see, and what's the next new fusion you want to see that does not involve Steven? A good question.
Ooh, great question.
I think Peridot and anyone.
Yeah, that could be fun.
I think either Peridot and Lapis because of their relationship. I think you know what? I think when Garnet offered, it was more about it's that simple. If you've got a connection with a person and you're comfortable doing it, then it's great and it's a wonderful thing and it can be a wonderful thing. But Peridot wasn't quite ready yet. But I think that was more. I think Garnet knew Peridot was gonna say no. She was more opening her up to that idea by asking the question in that moment. And I think genuinely the first person Peridot should fuse with is either Lapis or Steven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the trouble with Lapis, because my mind originally went to Lapis. I've got a different answer, so it's completely different to your answer. But when you first asked the question then, my mind went to Lapis. But the trouble is, I think the trouble with Peridot and Lapis for me is you've got 2 conflicting reasons to enjoy for me. You've got the fun of Peridot and the craziness and the whoa, I'm fusing, all that kind of stuff. But with Lapis, you've got quite a serious discussion on what it means for her, what it means for the fusion, bearing in mind her last fusion, etc. So I would rather see Lapis fuse with someone else and Peridot fuse with someone else at first.
I actually disagree because I think that contrast is exactly what makes that fascinating. I think the drama would get out of that is enormous, and the strength it would take for Lapis to trust again to get into a in quote marks relationship, because that's, as Rebecca has said, fusion is a facsimile for relationships. The idea of Peridot being the first person Lapis trusts enough to do that with again, and dealing with that trauma / drama, and even having the pressure on Peridot knowing that she's going to have a job convincing Lapis, but she's chosen Lapis as the first person she wants to fuse with. I don't know. I think there's a lot of story in that. I think there's a lot of really
there's tons
good
of story in it,
stuff.
But I almost worry there's too much story for 11 minutes. You gotta.
Maybe you build it up over a series of episodes. I mean, they built up Peridot's redemption arc over multiple episodes. Why not have a multiple episode sort of thin arc that sort of in bits sort of sets up the dynamic, and that Peridot is now thinking about that and coming to that conclusion, but Lapis isn't quite on board, and then you finally top it off with the episode where it becomes about them convincing her to do it, or Peridot convincing her to do it.
That was weird watching all the stuff last week, watching the Stronger Than You music video and seeing Peridot as the villain.
Yes,
yeah.
100%.
It's hard to remember that time.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a big fan of a Megazord. Prove you've changed your opinion. Any combination of white, blue, or yellow diamond.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that. I know what that would create. Is it? I mean, obviously, yellow and blue would create a green diamond of sorts.
Oh, yeah.
But all 4 of them, maybe, including pink, is that black diamond?
I don't know. But I don't. Whatever Rebecca Sugar wants to do, but I think it's exciting.
It is exciting. It's exciting. Now, see, that is the 2 different sides. That is so funny because we have both picked the 2 different angles you get on fusion. I went straight to a fusion that really brings out the character work. It brings out the drama, and you went straight to like plot and like action and like. That's so us.
But I was specifically thinking of a drama angle because any combination, but only 2, and then the other one,
right?
Whoever's left,
well, the other 2
doesn't
really.
quite
4,
still.
Really?
Yeah, but you said without Stephen, so you do it so that say it's white and blue, yellow's beginning to have doubts. Yellow's beginning to like. Not think they've done the right thing. Yellow's doubting it, and then suddenly to defeat her, blue and white fuse. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I said with Stephen. I was going for with. Like.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
With Stephen, does that make Black Diamond like all 4 of them together? But yeah, no.
No. I thought the original question was a combination without Stephen. That's why I just went.
Oh, sorry. No, apologies. So the way the question was phrased. Was what's the next new fusion you want to see? Oh no, you want to see that doesn't involve Stephen. You're absolutely right. Sorry. Yeah. I thought it was. Oh no, it is 2 questions. What's the next new fusion you want to see, and also what's the next new fusion you want to see that doesn't involve Stephen?
Yeah. So it's the same answer for, but either some sort of Lapis in someone, or Peridot in someone, or the diamonds.
Yeah, I think that is the. I
answers.
think those are the logical next steps. So yeah, very good. Thank you for
that.
So
why do we think? Neither of us have gone to seeing bismuth fuse with someone because I suppose bismuth and lapis. There's all sorts of.
I just don't see it being. I see that happening in more of a fun in the middle of a battle
combat.
Just
bismuth and amethyst.
Just funsies. Fun. I don't see it being the center of a story. And I'm more interested in discussing the stuff that could be the center of a story. If bismuth fuses with someone, it'll actually more likely be someone like Garnet or Pearl because presumably they fought together in the rebellion.
No, but that's why I think you do. That's why I think a little potential prediction. Whack out the spreadsheet, Cram.
Every time you do that, Cram goes. You're able to update that yourself, right?
I know. But I mean, I think Cram and I both know I probably won't. And I admit fault there. That I should.
For those who don't know, because this is quite an in-joke, one of our listeners, Cram, has been very amazing and has kept spreadsheets of like episode lengths and also our predictions that have been proven right and wrong. It's really, really interesting. And I often do go back and glance over them, look at the data, and I do find it really fascinating.
So
credit to Cram for taking the time to put those together for sure.
Adore you for it, absolutely. But I think there's still story to tell with bismuth and amethyst because they didn't fight together. There's room for jealousy. There's from both sides. There's room for potential conflict, but there's also room for amazing friendship. And I think that having those 2 fuse could be fascinating. Whether in a battle sequence, but then there's more depth to it because of some of those other things I've just mentioned. Yeah. I think that could also be a really exciting combination.
Yeah. Oh, and can I clarify something I said earlier, just for the sake of it? I said earlier about like spending some episodes having Peridot convincing Lapis. That came out wrong. I meant more about Peridot building up the courage to maybe ask that question. And then have that conversation about whether Lapis is ready, rather than coaxing her into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that makes sense.
I don't think they would ever do a thing where someone's like, "Come on, you want to." It's weird. It's weird.
No, Jesus,
weird and wrong. So I just wanted to clarify because of the way I phrased it, what I actually meant. Cool. Should we go to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question from Hacksaw Unit. Favorite location in the show, aesthetically, where you'd want to visit, cool factor, approach it how you'd like. For me, it's the hill that Stephen had those flower petals all bloom from. The moss that turned out to be beautiful flower stuff. And really, like Lars and the Cool Kids, I think, was the name of the episode. I think it was like, and he took Lars up to that hill. I mean, actually, to be fair, before the watermelons, Mask Island was the most aesthetically pleasing place on the show, in my opinion. But that's now full of watermelon people, and I don't want to deal with them. I don't want to deal with watermelon society. I don't want to get kidnapped and then have a star painted on my chest or whatever. Like, no, thank you. So I'm going to say that hill in Beach City where you overlook everything, and Steven took Lars up there, and then the moss bloomed. I thought that was just beautiful. Presuming the moss is still up there and would bloom at the time I was there.
Yeah. Fish stew pizza. Seems you can order anything at that place.
Yeah, do you remember that giant pizza he got with like everything on it, and it was just this gross pile of mush on top of a pizza?
There's not been a lot of conflict there as far as I'm aware. So yeah.
Oh, you reckon you're safe there? Is what you're getting at?
I'm safe and I'm eating. Two very high priorities of mine, Dan. You know what? The beach and the house would be, or like if you were actually to go in that world, that would probably be what you'd go to and like look around and stuff. Yeah. So yeah,
the temple. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of options. Will we ever get the Jess Nadia switcheroo episode where they host this podcast but never reference it being different?
Yeah, the only problem with that is Jess doesn't watch the show, so it'd only be Nadia talking.
Yeah, that's true. Next question.
If you two were the showrunners instead of Sugar for a season, what would you change about the show, and what do you wish they did or didn't do?
I thought when I read this originally, I thought it was episode or season, and I remember thinking I'd do an episode and try not to fuck it up.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, honestly, the show is pretty close to perfect, and I don't think I would trust myself with it, but...
Yeah, exactly! That's the problem!
If I had any control over any element of the show, though, I would have maybe requested we take more time with the arc we just had.
Oh yeah, I would have had a season. Would be it. Yeah.
That's the only real major concern I've ever had with the show, is that arc was a bit fast.
It's the answer to both questions. I would put a season between Reunited, that would be the season finale, and then the next season would build to Change Your Mind being that season's finale. Yeah,
so you would basically take all of the, what do they call it, Diamond Days Battle of Heart and Mind arc of like 6-7 episodes, and you would turn that into a 20-episode season.
Yeah, and I think the only problematic thing is you've got to keep nipping to space for Adventures with Lars,
or nipping to Homeworld.
Yeah,
but I suppose you could do an episode early in that run.
Yeah. So do you still end it the same way? Do you end it with Steven? Do you end it with them going to Homeworld, or does Reunited end a different way? No, Reunited doesn't end with them going to Homeworld. Does it?
Legs from here to Homeworld. The next episode.
Yeah, so you just have some town shit, and then they go to Homeworld or something. Sure.
Yeah. Or you could do it.
You could work out how to do it.
Actually, even easier is with the diamonds on Earth. They try to help with the healing. Go, we're going to need to speak to White Diamond, and it's like, well, what's the easiest way for us to all go back? And they're like, well, we could go through the ships, but that's going to take time because we've established in the past that Homeworld is quite far away. And they're like, well, or the easy option is we fix the galaxy warp, and you fix that right early in the season, and then you've got the ability for the characters to, while everyone's amicable, you go back and forth a bit at the beginning of the season, and then you start to barrel towards Change Your Mind, where it becomes clear that White, who's been avoiding Steven all season, is clearly not going to change her mind. And that's when we build to Steven having to ultimately, till the fusion things that happened in what was the episode where they all fused at the party and everyone got angry? Which episode was that? I can't remember what it was called.
I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head.
But yeah, you'd go to that episode.
Was that Familiar?
No, it's the episode directly after Familiar. Familiar is where he decides he's going to...
Escapism? No, the escapism's him getting locked up.
Yeah, you've gone between the two. We've gone from the episode...
What was it?
It's literally the episode wedged between those two. Shall I look it up quickly so we don't go mad?
Yeah, because it's going to bug.
It is going to bug me. Here we go. That's going to drive me mad if I don't check it out. Together Alone.
That's it.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, that is it. Yeah, that is it. Together Alone.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it.
So it's legs from...
I think...
Legs from here to Homeworld, Together Alone, Escapism.
there's stuff you'd have to change, and even just talking it through, then like you'd have to make excuses to pause almost. But I definitely think that felt. I mean, it felt like two finales, and it just felt like so much. Like, why would you not spread this out? Like,
because every time something felt slightly rushed, I was just like, it didn't need to be this way. You could have taken more time to explore this idea. Sorry, I missed familiar when I said that. So it's legs from here, the homeworld, familiar, together alone, escapism. Then change your mind.
And just imagine if Reunited was the season finale.
Yeah, it would have been an amazing season finale. So yeah, that's what I would have done. So
yeah, I think I agree.
This question actually came through on Twitter, because I did also put it out on Twitter. I didn't get too many responses on Twitter, but I've got this one from Aaron Ashmore at Aaron Ashmore 8. Do you think you can ever be excited for SU? No, sorry. Do you ever think you can be as excited for SU than you were before Change Your Mind aired? I set an alarm to wake me up so I could watch it live, and for me, it rounded off perfectly. Everything from this point on might feel like an epilogue. It's a good point. Do you think we'll ever be as excited for a Steven Universe thing? I think there's a potential for me to be as excited about the movie.
There is the potential. I think you know what? I honestly, this is going to sound stupid, but I honestly think my answer to this question might have been different 2 weeks ago. But in a world where I came out of Toy Story 4 going, oh shit, they pulled it off again. Didn't expect that. I just think that you can, if they've got a good enough plan, you can have a story finish and then go, oh, here's this idea, and you go, oh, that idea is interesting enough to justify it. So I think I do believe if they do the right build up, then I think I could be as excited. That's
the thing, isn't it? It's very theoretical, because the excitement for Change Your Mind was knowing that all these stories that we've been invested in for multiple seasons were coming to a head. The only way you're going to build that level of excitement again is if they successfully again manage to lay out stories that get me that invested, and then crescendo them into a big finale.
Yes.
So maybe I may very well be that excited again for the end of the show, whenever that inevitably comes.
But also, like, hindsight inevitably merges into it. I was pumped, but I wasn't going, oh, we're probably going to get every missing fusion, and oh, we're probably going to see Steven, we're probably going to see them heal. Do you know what I mean? The sheer volume of stuff they did, we weren't necessarily expecting. So I do think it is possible. Yeah. But I honestly think as well that Toy Story 4's impacted that.
Yeah, I think there's a truth to that. So we got a question from Latty, which is an addition actually to Kat's question of what would you change about the show, which is, what do you think you'd have done differently, but they did better. That's
seasons 1 to 5.
Yeah, I think most of the character work, I think I would have had the same ideas, that's not fair. I think I could have come to a lot of the same conclusions and had the same ideas about where the character should go, but I don't think I'd have executed them anywhere near as subtly and brilliantly as they did. So I think where I would have mostly dropped the ball if I was in charge of the show is the character work, because again, the subtlety of the character work is kind of unprecedentedly brilliant in this show. It's incredible, and as much value as I put on that, game recognized game, like I couldn't achieve what they've achieved at all.
I think any time we've praised them a lot for it on the show. It's so hard to do. Any time that they have pulled off a surprise that has felt surprising, but makes complete and utter sense. I don't know if I'd have been. I've never been, not in anything I've ever written have I been able to achieve that. And I've never particularly tried. That alone it says a lot.
And not to give too much away, but I'm attempting to achieve similar things in a script. Well, there you go. It's something I'm working on at the moment.
And we will find out if Daniel Frederick Doolan can do it.
Yeah,
but I know there's a question that references that later. But I think anytime they've done that, the Rose stuff and a lot of the arcs on the on the B characters, Sadie's arc, Lars's arc.
Yeah,
I think
balancing clever secondary character arcs without overpowering the main story is a really hard balancing act. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think anything where like that. And to be honest with you, I know we even just then have kind of criticised Change Your Mind, but to be honest with you, I don't think I'd have been able to do that amount of stuff and pull it off at all in the way that they did.
Yeah, because as much as we can say we wish it wasn't as rushed as it ended up being, the fact that it worked as well as it did is a fucking near miracle, because it shouldn't have on any level.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Next question.
Yeah, man.
What was the emotional beat that hit the hardest for you in the show? I come back to the test a lot, and it's a weird one because it's not really meant to be that emotionally impactful. But the moment Steven realizes that sometimes he's going to have to look after them, even though he's a kid, and he goes through and pretends that he succeeded and that they've helped him with his confidence because he knows they need that. Seeing this child forced to be so mature really upset me because he still should be a kid. He's like 10 or whatever. He's like a child. I don't know how old he is in that episode, during that episode, but he's young. He's very young. And it's just that, seeing how bad the pressure was clearly getting for him, and that in spite of all of that, he's such a wonderful person. He still did the right thing by his family and for them, not considering his own well-being, and just was like, it doesn't matter if this actually helps me. They need it, and like giving them that. Oh, that gets me every time. That's so powerful. The test, for sure. I do also think pretty much any moment from what's the Rose episode where he goes in the room the second time and has that conversation with her.
Yeah,
I love that episode.
Yeah, I know the word you mean. The episode you mean. Sorry.
Yeah, Storm in the Room.
Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah,
utterly incredible.
I think for me, this isn't as, and I will try and think of a deeper answer, but the episode more than any other that I watched and went, shit, I know exactly how that feels, is the one where he's waiting for a reply from Connie.
Yeah.
on his phone, and he's just, the way he's checking his phone and stuff, I just felt like I remembered incidents, like I remember two specific ones, like of texting someone and just like checking my phone constantly and waiting for a reply, and it just emotionally put me back in that place.
Yeah.
Which I have to say is actually a rare, as much as I adore television, it's rare for TV to do that. I usually get that from music. I can hear a song and be transported back to a specific emotion, a specific time. Rarely ever has TV done that, but I really connected with that. And yeah, so that in particular.
Next question, also from Latty. If you had to pitch a spin-off series, what would it be? Bonus point for not picking Lars and the Off-Colors, because that's just so obvious. I honestly think if this show finishes, and this has just come to me, because I read this question earlier and was like, I don't even know what I'm going to say for that, but it's literally just hit me what you do. I think there's a lot of fun to be had in a simpler show of the aftermath of this show, in the sense of, so Steven and all the gem stuff and craziness finally sort of settles, and you just do a show called Beach City about everyone just living their lives in Beach City now, and like you could tell I think you could tell some great stories with those characters that don't get that much play. Mr. Smiley, Nana Foy, the mayor, like the cool kids, Sadie, like you could just tell a million and one stories about the side characters and just make that the show. I'd watch that show.
I think I'd go the other way. You've gone sequels, so I'd go for a mini series about the war. It's a little bit the problem that it's a little bit the problem that Harry Potter has when J.K. Rowling, although she probably will do it at some point, but when J.K. Rowling has been asked about exploring, James, Lily, Snape, etc., she's always said, well, the key, you've seen the key things, you've seen all that, we don't, and there's an element of that. But I think you could certainly, even if you repeated some of the moments, you maybe do them from a different character's perspective or something. But I think there's definitely either the war or Rose, because then you've got the full scope to go from when she was Pink to just before Stephen was born. Almost, you could Better Call Saul it. So yeah, I think actually there's more room to stretch that. So I'd go Rose.
Cool. Yeah, a bit for that. I'd definitely be up for that. Yeah. Another idea might actually be just the other side of it from Homeworld's perspective.
Yeah,
the war from Homeworld's side, the war and everything. Actually, the whole of Steven Universe is like you could do a series just telling Homeworld's side of all those stories. Like start with Homeworld with Peridot on it with Jasper, and then they have to go out to Earth, and you sort of they disappear from the story because you're still on Homeworld, and you do it that way. That's a potential idea as well.
Or another planet, and you spend the whole series thinking, well, we haven't heard of this planet, so does this end in the most depressing way with the planet being overtaken, or do they survive in a way that means we don't know about it?
Oh, I thought you were talking about doing like a stealth sequel where it's a different show about like aliens, and then at the end you reveal it's set in the Steven Universe in a sort of split style gotcha. It's actually a sequel series premise.
Oh, wow. No, I wasn't thinking that, but no, that'd be awesome. But I think it's a little bit like Star Wars, isn't it? There's plenty of planets, there's plenty of worlds.
Yeah,
not everything.
You could do it like a whole show about these other alien creatures, and then have it end with the bloody Diamond Authority showing up to take over, and it's like a pre.
Or just do it about alien. Oh, you do that. You just do it about alien creatures for like 2-3 seasons, and it's all ticking along, and then at the end of the 4th season, the diamonds invade, like the gems invade and stuff.
Awesome, I'd watch that.
And you don't know you don't know at what point during the show it's set.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because then it's like, oh, is this post-Steven? Have they gone back to their old ways? Oh, That's genius. Oh, you're a clever man.
Is Steven going to appear? What's going to happen? The bad side is, like, you'd potentially piss the people off that I only watched that show, and then at season 4, I was like, what the fuck? What? I've got to find out about this other show. Like, what? I've got to watch 8 seasons of...
I would trust that by the way, 8 seasons, optimistic. I would trust that they would, any information you would need contextually would be fed through the show. And that to watchers who are just watching that show, it would be just like, oh, there are some bad guys here.
Again, and I know I keep going on about it, and I can't remember if I mentioned it last week, but again, Toy Story 4, that beginning montage, I was like, fucking hell, you could watch this if you hadn't seen any of the others.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, 100%.
That film does some smart things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, next question. Also from Kat. We'll go back to Kat, added some more questions later on. If you were shippers, what do you think your SU ships would be? I mean, it's Sapphire, isn't it?
Which is...
Do you remember Sapphire?
Sapphire and the Friar from...
And the Fryman. Yeah, do you not remember that picture we had of them embracing each other that someone had sent? Or I suppose, I mean, we do, Blue Diamond and Barn is another one I do love, where they're embracing. That's always quite fun.
So I would have said Sadie and Lars, but now I think their stories have gone in different directions, and it's more interesting to have their stories go in different directions.
Yeah, okay, you know what? I guess if I was to if I was to handle the question seriously, I do kind of love Peridot Lapis.
Yeah.
That'd be a relationship I'd be really behind. I know a lot of people think Peridot Amethyst, but I like Peridot Amethyst. Peridot Lapis.
Yeah, I kind of prefer Peridot Amethyst. I've always seen Peridot and Lapis more as a friendship thing. I'd be fine if they go down that route and do it well. But I've personally always interpreted it as a friendship thing.
I just think they'd be good for each other. I don't think Amethyst needs it, but I think those two need each other.
But why do they need each other in a shipping context? Why can't they need each other as in a friendship context?
They can, but I like to think of if I was going to plant a flag in a relationship, I'd like to see explored that way. Yeah. That would be one I would take comfort in knowing that they'd find love in each other as well, because they've both been
fair enough.
They've both been through a lot of very similar things, but reacted to them very differently, and I think that's really interesting. But I think that gives them a lot of common ground. Yeah,
I'd like to see Pearl be with someone.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'd like
Pearl
to see
with
that
anyone,
story.
but I kind of at this point think it shouldn't be Mystery Girl. We had that conversation on here recently.
Yeah, no, I think, I stand by that. So I don't know if you have to introduce a new character.
Yeah, I guess you would have to.
But I'd love an episode where Pearl's debating whether she can allow herself to feel that way. Yeah. And both Stephen and Greg, Greg say it's okay. Don't know why I nearly called him Mr. Greg, but...
Yeah, well, there you go.
I don't know why Greg's permission or Greg's approval would mean so much to her, but I think it would.
Well, there you go. Next question.
Yeah.
What's your favourite Pokemon? And if either of you say Charizard, I'm leaving this server.
Wow. I'll go for the only other one I know then. Pikachu.
Yeah. For me, it's Generation 1, it's Scyther. I always liked Scyther. I don't know why. Just like the design. But if I'm going all time, it's probably Greninja. I like the tongue scarf thing. I think there's something weirdly cool about that. It's just occurring to me that design-wise, those two actually share some similarities. So maybe there's a sort of like what's the look of like an agility sort of design to them where they both look like they could sort of hop around and be quite agile. So maybe I've got a preference there. But yeah, no, Greninja, one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, and I've got the special Ash Greninja that you got if you got one of the games early. I forget which game it was and played the demo. I've got that somewhere in my Pokebank for if I can ever import it into a future game, which by the sound of it I might not be able to. There's a whole controversy surrounding that at the moment. Isn't that right, listeners? I'm sure many of you know about it, as I've seen quite a lot of people talking about it in the comments. So there you go.
Pikachu.
Wow. Fair enough.
No, I'm sorry to hear that's happening, and
yeah, well, a lot of people are upset because it's
answer.
like the premise is got to catch them all, but basically all the Pokemon aren't going to be in the next game for the first time ever, so you won't be able to catch them all.
Well, you can't catch them all then.
Nope. In previous games, they've not been catchable in that game, but they've been transferable to that game from a previous one. So they've been in the game if you want to transfer them, but they're not necessarily catchable directly in the game. But that's fine, because most people have what's called the Pokebank now, which is an app where you can take your Pokemon out of an older version of the Pokemon game and transfer them into a new one.
Cool.
So you can have your Pokemon with you. Like one person put a post up really upset because they were saying like they've had a Pokemon that's been with them for like 10 years now because it's been transferred from game to game.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And they were like, don't separate me from my friend.
That sucks. Yeah, of course, that's understandable feeling that way.
So because they're literally not going to be programmed into the game, so they won't even be transferable into it. It's a big deal. People are upset.
I can see why. That's shitty.
No, not great. I know we kind of get why, because basically they're saying like it's too many things to render in full 3D. Now we've got too many. The number of Pokemon has finally exceeded our resources, because there are like 800 of them. 800, not nearly 900 now, I guess, when this new generation comes out. So I think that it's finally breached the capabilities of just resources and time to physically re-render each of them in the new graphic engine for the new console. So yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyway.
Okay.
Next question is from Tyzoid. Yeah. My question is, given the 1-year anniversary of the wedding of Garnet, how do you think the state of tolerance towards LGBTQ issues on television has progressed since its airing? It's hard to gauge, because we don't know you don't always know who's trying and failing. We really didn't realise how hard Rebecca Sugar had it to get that episode on the air until after it got on the air. So part of me wonders, are the showrunners still bumping up against serious censorship issues? Or not censorship as such, but like, issues where they're being sort of coerced into not going down certain routes plot-wise because of how it might piss off, areas of the country or whatever, because people are still very bigoted. It's really hard to tell. We've certainly got a little bit more of it since then, which is nice, but I don't think the Arthur thing, for example, I don't think Steven Universe necessarily opened the door for that. I think that was probably on the cards already, I'm guessing.
I would have thought so, yeah.
Because it was only within what, 6 months of the Steven Universe thing. So like that's got to have been in planning and production prior to it airing on Steven Universe. So I don't know. I certainly haven't seen more of it.
which is a shame.
No, I don't think. And I there's also, if anything, what we have seen more of though, and Council of Geeks is a YouTuber who does some fantastic content about these kind of shows and geek shows and the Marvel movies, all the stuff we love. But he also does amazing content about LGBTQ representation. So go check him out for a start. But it's things like, I'm pretty sure that Marcus and McFeely and the Russo brothers just wrote that scene at the beginning of Endgame and just had that character played by one of the Russo brothers reference going on a date, and it happened to be a man. They didn't then go, first gay character in Marvel, and the hoorah that came with that, and the fact that Disney came out and talked about it. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot more. Representation gets so complicated because companies and executives and the people in the suits are like, oh, we can try and make something of this, and actually that's not the point.
No,
and the point is he went on a date with a man, and that's just it would have been so much nicer if that moment had just happened, and like it didn't come with all this analysis and it didn't come with all of this expectation, because then they're under pressure for seemingly not making more of that moment. But surely the point of that moment is that they're not making more of that moment.
Yes, 100% agree. And this is what frustrated me around Pride here in England, and I think the same thing has been happening in the US from what I've been reading online, which is a lot of companies jumping on that, jumping on, and like having, like Pret in the UK changed they have a logo that's a star, and it was a rainbow star. And I understand, I think in a world where companies would just, we support, that's fine, but I think there's an element of the cynic in me thinks you're supporting for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
you're a company supporting, for financial gain. I don't want to. It's hard to say because it's awful to think of, but I think they think that looks better for them from a PR perspective. I don't think they're actually, because if these companies were actually supporting charities related to, people who have suffered at the hands of suffered either bullying or suffered at the hands of parents not accepting their sexuality or things like that. There are lots of charities out there that really help when people have mental health issues as a result of, problems with their upbringing. Those charities are incredible. Or charities fighting for the rights. Charities that are like paying lawyers to help people who are having rights issues due to their sexuality. People who are being discriminated against with their jobs or whatever. Put your money where your mouth is, Pret. Like, don't just put a star, like a rainbow in your star logo. I'm only calling out Pret because I work right next to one and I saw it every day for the last 2 weeks. I think it's cynical if they're just doing it for doing it. Like there was a HSBC bank I walked past the other day and they were all rainbowed up as well. And again, I'm all for everyone supporting, but these companies really need to be doing something more than just strapping a rainbow to their logo. And it's a real problem. And I think that expands to what you were talking about in Avengers, which is like
film and TV,
well, film and TV in general, but specifically your Avengers example, which is like you're exactly right. It's not about it's not about making a hoopla. In fact, if anything, it's the opposite. That's the problem. The problem is the hoopla.
That's the point.
Because we're trying to normalize it so that kids growing up can understand that it's not socially unacceptable or surprising or unusual for someone to be gay. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas you make a big song and dance, then you're saying, isn't that amazing? Look, we've got one. Like, that's horrendous. What message is that sending? So like there's a part of me that just thinks like, it's like good intentions, but you miss the mark so hard. And I think there was a lot of that around Pride in London, and I think there's a lot of that in America from what I read, because last month in America was Pride Month, and they had a lot of companies doing that as well. And I think that if you're not putting your money where your mouth is, it's cynicism. And I think in terms of the great estate of it, I don't see. It's a shame to say this, and I hate to say this, but I don't think Garnet changed anything. I think
no, but
I think maybe in the long term it will, but right now we're not much further along than we were.
Yeah, and I hope that the storyline has changed a child's mind, or has changed, and that I think that kind of stuff is,
that's what's important.
And I think that that is changing. And
I think the more examples,
I think just hearing the way hearing the way that the younger generation talk about things like that, I feel with such pride in hearing the way that some of our generation have gone positively backwards with some of that stuff because of things like Trump and Brexit. We've discussed it before on here. In my opinion, that's created a culture where people think they can say things, and Twitter and social media, they think they can say things that they wouldn't dare say in real life to people, and that in turn eventually begins to slip, and suddenly people are saying the most horrendous things and hiding behind irony.
Yeah.
But the generation below us, I feel like that's not happening as much, and I think that's a really good thing. And I hope that Steven Universe has had, and that storyline has had an impact on people in that way.
Yeah, and I think as well in the long term, at a certain point, there's going to be another creator like Rebecca Sugar pushing. Or trying, not pushing to, because they'll. This always starts with the creator just wanting to tell their story, and they only need to push once the network pushes back, But there'll be a creator like Rebecca Sugar who has a story to tell, and they're suddenly going to get pushed back and be like, "Wait, what?" Hopefully they'll be able to point at Steven Universe and go, "Look, you put that on the air, and the world didn't end. Can we not be silly now?" Yeah. I'm hoping at some point people can use things like Arthur and things like Steven Universe as an example to do it themselves when they want to and when it's suitable to their story they're telling. But to just create a world where anyone can just tell those stories and it not be an issue. And these are certainly the first steps to getting there. Having things like that wedding on television, both those weddings on television, and kids television specifically, which is where the real barrier seems to have been. I do think it's a good and important step, but has it changed anything yet? No. Will it help in the long run? Yeah, I'd say so.
Do you think it's changed you to get personal?
Do you think it's in what way? Can you elaborate on that?
So for example, I personally think for me this show and watching content like Council of Geeks content and just being just experiencing content like that web series, this show, I think has made a positive impact. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, oh, but you and a partner, they're single, and I went, you and a partner, and they were like, oh, that was clever, and they were trying to, it was an important conversation, and I feel like they thought I'd used the word partner to try and assess their status and to try and assess their sexuality, and I found it really difficult to explain that I genuinely hadn't done that deliberately. I just used the term partner now, and I think this show and content like it, and analysing and getting feedback, like some of the feedback on the gender naming and stuff like that, I think it has made an impact on me personally, and I found it was a really tricky situation because I truly was not trying to be clever and dig down into their sexuality. I truly wasn't, but it was interesting that was their interpretation, because people don't do that. People assume one thing or another and will phrase questions with those assumptions in mind. And I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, well, why was I doing that? And I was like, no, I genuinely don't think I was. And I think it's because of content like this show and the other content that I'm consuming.
I think okay, I see what you're getting at now. Yeah, I think so. For me, it's been about making me just more aware of how far we have to come. It's very easy when you're in, I'm going to just describe it as a liberal bubble to be general, but I don't want to get into me semantics, but you create a bubble of like-minded people, right? So I have lived in a world of, I have friends, some of whom are gay, some of whom are not, and it's not a thing. It's not really something we sit around and talk about. It's kind of like like a, look at me on my, on my high horse. I'm not white knighting or anything. I'm just saying like, it's just not really a concern. And it's easy when you build that bubble to sort of go, well, we fixed it then, right? Like it's sorted, okay? It's not an issue anymore.
Yeah.
No one is suffering. Everyone happy because I'm in a bubble of people who are all being supportive and not caring and that. And then I think between this show and the current political climate, I've gone, oh, we've got so far to go. So far. And I'm not saying this show has pointed that out. I mean, like, this show has made me aware because I've come into contact with a greater number of people who are representing that group than I would have otherwise, who are still suffering at the hands of either laws or policies or politics that create inequality, or even issues like Rebecca struggling to get the fucking wedding on television because, before this show existing, if you'd have described that situation to me, I'd have been like, no, you're talking out of your ass. Like, we live in come on, it's 20 whatever. Yeah. Come on. That's not happening anywhere in the world. So I think what this show has done has increased my general awareness of how far we have to go, because I think I built myself into a comfortable bubble of, well, it's not something I ever have to struggle with because apparently I was, for some reason, like in the one category that seems to be out, not getting it in the neck, which is a straight white dude. But then on top of that, all my friends, again, were all within this support bubble where everything was just fine and happy and no one was like having any problems. And it's like, and England had even made, gay marriage legal pretty recently. So like, I don't know, I was just in this pretty happy place about it and feeling quite positive about humanity. And then the last few years have been like, this show has introduced me to a lot of people still struggling. And then on top of that, the political situation shifted and I've just been like, oh no, I had it so wrong. So yeah, I think the show has changed my viewpoint.
It's analysing it and and talking about it as well, and like seeing other people analyze it. Like there was someone recently that said, we're talking about the Marvel movies, and they said to me, oh yeah, no, I've seen everyone in the cinema, and then they went, oh, except Black Panther and Captain Marvel. Now, how dare I suggest that is in any way a race thing or a sexist thing or anything like that? But it did make me pause and go, well, that is odd. Like, why did you feel the need to go and see Ant-Man and the Wasp in the cinema and not Black Panther or Captain Marvel? Like, and I'm sure it could be any host of reasons, but I think because we analyze stuff and I consume content of other people analyzing it, arguably more than I consume TV and film itself, because of things like walking and podcast and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It does make you stop and go, that's a bit odd, though. Like,
yeah, and I also agree with you. That choice does seem very specific, particularly because of the reviews for Black
Panther in particular.
The reviews for Black Panther versus the reviews for Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't.
Yeah.
That is a bit odd.
And both came immediately before honestly, the amount of times I had to say the sentence, "Oh, don't worry about it. She's really strong. That's all you really need to know." Because people were seeing Endgame without seeing Captain Marvel was crazy.
Yeah. Well, but Captain Marvel in the UK had a massive box office bump the week before Endgame, where hundreds of thousands of people just packed cinemas out, because they were at that point cinemas were showing it a lot less frequently because the demand had died down, and then all of a sudden screens went from being empty to or almost empty because it was towards the end of its run to being full because of all the last minute crap. I didn't catch that movie, and now I need to see Endgame, and I want to see it before I see Endgame.
And again, for most people, it's probably not a sexist thing, but I think when analysing yourself and consuming content that's analysing that kind of thing, especially some of the dialogue around Captain Marvel, which was horrible.
That happens every time there's a female
make you
movie.
think.
Think about like the Ghostbusters reboot. Like, oh my god, that was a horrendous time to live.
Yeah, but I feel like it got really personal against Brie Larson and stuff.
It did. Yeah. Well, she seems to have developed to like she seems to have gained a whole weird subsect of like internet hate I don't know why it's directed. She directed a movie this year. I didn't see it. I saw the trailer. It looked fine. I had no real opinion on it. She got a lot of shit for that too. Like, madness.
People, but also the stories about fucking Disney purchasing all the seats for Captain Marvel. It was just madness. Anyway.
So yeah, and then so that was Anthony's question. No, that wasn't Anthony's question. Whose question was that? Huh. Was that Anthony's question? What was the question?
The question was about the Garnet and the wedding and stuff.
That's right. That was Tyzoid's question. Okay, so Anthony's question was what? This kind of ties in actually. What lessons has the show taught you, either emotional morals or lessons about writing and storytelling? I'm gonna let the previous answer cover what it's taught me.
I agree.
Morally, because I think I already knew a lot of the stuff. So the show does a lot of stuff that's helping kids learn lessons that most functional adults should probably already know, but it's nice to be reminded. The big thing I got out of the show was obviously what we just talked about, learning that like we had so much further to come than I initially imagined. In terms of screenwriting and storytelling, I think patience. Like, I would have, if you laid this show out for me and said, write this show, man, I'd have revealed Garnet by episode 10. I'd have revealed the pink diamond thing by episode like 20. Like, I'd have been like an excitable teenager, at their first time, like 2 minutes and I'm out. Like, I wouldn't have been able to hold any of that in. I'd be like, I've got this and this, and look at this and look at this. The sheer patience that Rebecca showed writing the show and just being like, no, we'll get to it. I have to be confident that I can just take the time to reveal this to you, and that I'm a confident and clever. I'm a decent enough storyteller that I don't need to rely on the fancy shiny explosions that I've got down the line. You'll be just entertained by the thing before I do all the dazzly particle effect stuff. To use a bad analogy, but I think that kind of patience is very admirable, and I think that's taught me a lot about storytelling.
For me, the same answers we've just kind of discussed and stuff with the morals and stuff. But storytelling, just the power of 11 minutes, the nuance and stuff. And I mean, admittedly, to be fair, that could also be the power of getting people invested in the characters. That does a lot of the work for you. Again, not to draw the Marvel comparison, but the reason Endgame is so effective is because you've had 22 movies of build-up. And the reason, Stephen breaking down is so effective is because we've seen the reasons why. But still, what they do with 11 minutes is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. We'll try and blast through the last questions because we've still got a couple. We can go another 10, 15 minutes. Is that all right, Chris?
Yeah, it's good with me.
Yeah, okay. There's not many left, but I want to make sure that we since we're so close, we might as well get through them all. This is a good one. I really like this one. This is another one from Latty, who was on fire with these questions. If you were going to pitch an animated show based on something from your childhood, like Rebecca Sugar did with this show, because obviously it's about her and her brother growing up and visiting a sleepy seaside town in the holidays and stuff, what would your version of that be about?
Oh, blimey.
If you're still thinking, I kind of have an
answer.
You
go with your answer. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I spent a huge amount of time alone. I was quite content. I was always described as being very content with my own company, and I would just sit in my room and I would imagine myself, and I'd play with my toys. I would imagine myself in different worlds and places, and dream about these ridiculous and incredible scenarios. Because I watched a lot of TV and read a lot of books, even when I was quite young, that just inspired that level of creativity. So I always thought it'd be fun to do a show like that, where it's a kid in a very mundane family situation, nothing crazy, but then he goes to his room and he can just be wherever and whoever. And 1 week he can be if he's feeling good about himself, he can be a hero in a fantasy story, a knight saving a princess or whatever, or whatever his emotional state is. The story would be that whatever his emotional state is based on his family life, which is what you'd also explore. It would be split between the two. So you'd have his domestic life and then his fantasy life, and they would complement each other, and they would help you. He would help, and it's how he gets through his understanding his own emotions and character stuff.
That's nice. That's good.
So, if he's having relationship problems, there's a girl he likes, but he doesn't know how to talk to her, he can try imagining a scenario where he does and doesn't. He would accentuate it, so it'd be like a crazy science fiction scenario or something like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so then you get the best of both.
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing about that is the combinations. So what the imaginary tells you about the real and stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, that's cool. It's probably an adult because it very much still applies, and it's potentially a better live action thing than an animated show. But I think the element of my childhood and adulthood that I want to see explored in some form is my love for teddy bears, but not an animated show where the teddy bear is real and comes to life, but an animated show or a media of some kind that shows why that relationship can be important. Because I wrote a little short piece for it for someone's art project, this bizarre thing, a few years ago, and basically made the point that people think when I'm like, I got a teddy bear, love him, they think that's a joke. But if I were to say, oh, I've got a box of photos, and if anything ever happened to them, I'd be distraught, no one would question that. If I were to say, oh, I've got a piece of jewellery that was given to me by X, and it means the world to me, no one would question that.
But Teddy
and
Tom.
When you're a child, there's no need to name the teddy bear. Let's not get too, I don't want to give too much. But when you're a child, the love that you give a teddy bear, you talk to that bear, you tell that bear things, you carry around that bear with you. That teddy bear is a real person to you. I don't understand why people don't understand that if that much love goes into something,
right,
then they become incredibly important. They become a huge part of your life. And of course, maybe that has been explored, and I'm just ranting about teddy bears now. But
I think it's interesting actually, because that was kind of dealt with a little bit. And there's a really great episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns had a teddy bear he loved like that, and it went missing.
Oh yeah,
when
didn't he lose the bear
younger?
or something? Yeah.
What's that, Siri?
Yeah, he lost the bear, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and it ends up somehow finding its way to Maggie Simpson, and he's offering her the world for it. But she loves it and doesn't care. She doesn't want anything else. She's now in love with the bear. It's a great story. That's a brilliant episode of The Simpsons. I've forgotten about that episode until just now.
I think if you say animated show or kids anything, movie, TV or whatever, about a child and their teddy bear, the temptation is to make the teddy bear actually animated, make the teddy bear come to life, make the teddy bear talk.
Sure.
I love the notion of something where the teddy bear still seems alive, but it's being moved by the kid. The thoughts are being said by the kid. Yes. The bear, do you see what I mean? We see, not through science fiction and magic, but we see this living, breathing bear because of the life that the child puts into it.
Yes.
I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I like that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. But I think it's probably better as live action, because then you could literally see it, and people would be like, "Oh wow, what they did with the camera angles and had the."
But you could do that with animation if you cut cleverly between the different shots and angles.
Yeah. That's true. True.
Yeah.
Cool.
In fact, anything, you got more scope with animation. Yeah. Cool. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. I'd watch that show.
There you go. A Boy and His Bear.
Coming soon to Cartoon Network. And this one's for you, Chris. What show would you most like to force Dan to watch and do a podcast about? He has also added the caveat, and I love this because this really shows you just don't know Chris at all. To make this maybe easier, it doesn't have to be a show. It could be player support or pick up some other player. I don't know what I said support. Player specific sport or pick up some other hobby. Chris sport. That's not a thing.
I run.
That's not a sport though. That's an exercise. It's not a sport.
I watch international football games. I thought the women's World Cup team for England did really well, by the way.
They did.
As a side note.
Semi-finals?
I thought they did brilliantly. Huh?
Semi-finals?
Yeah, fantastic. They did to hold off the US, the team that went on to win it and the team that had previously won a game 13-0, to hold them off the way they did, and they got really unlucky with the offside goal and stuff like that.
There you go. Anyway.
That's another good example, by the way. The amount of massive football fans in my life that were male that were not watching the Women's World Cup blew my mind. because I was like, but if you love the sport, and this is an international tournament of which the UK are doing really well, England, sorry, are doing really well.
Yes.
Why would you not be watching? I don't understand that.
Yeah. If you're a fan of that sport, there's no reason to not watch that. I agree.
Yeah. I didn't get it.
You know what? And I'm going to say there's the same thing is happening in motorsports. The amount of Formula One fans that are turning their nose up at Formula E when it's more of the thing you love. And because at the moment it's not particularly governed by a very strict rule set, is currently way more unpredictable and exciting than Formula One. Currently, that will probably change as it gets a bit homogenized and they start figuring out more consistent rule sets and stuff. But at the moment, it's fucking chaos. Like, drivers don't even always know the rules themselves and break them by accident. It's amazing what's happening in Formula E sometimes. I love it. And there's some really great wheel-to-wheel, honest, like, racing action too. But it's the same thing. I'm just like, it's just snobbery. It's just motorsport snobbery. It's just turning your nose up at it. Nah, they don't make a big brum brum sound because they're electric. Not interested. What? You're a lunatic. If you want, I can come to your house with a soundboard of car sounds. Play it as they go past if you want. It'll be the same experience. So yeah, I agree.
In terms of the question, I think there's a few different angles to it in a way. I could pick a show that I just want an excuse to watch and probably won't watch unless there's an excuse to, i.e. Battlestar Galactica.
Great show.
Which would be roughly the same format because I've never seen it and you have. Or The West Wing, which I would also love to finish. Or Avatar, actually.
Yep.
The other angle is to just make you watch a show that I really like and then I get to rewatch it and that's cool. Which would fall like your Auf Wiedersehen Pet is a show that if I had more time I would probably watch every 2 years. And I know you've already seen the first 2 seasons, but still, just for my own enjoyment.
It's a good show.
Or probably another answer, which is probably where I'll settle on. But also, none of these answers are particularly like clickable. They're not like they wouldn't get good views. So I could do a show. I would love. We're never going to do it, but part of me would love to rewatch Lost and pick up on what was, and to almost make that list of like, well, that never got covered, that never got answered. You know, all of that kind of stuff. Then do you just rewatch because it would be a blast, like The Office, etc. I think the show I've got love for that Dan's not seen, and the show that he will never sit down and watch. So arguably the most equivalent is Boy Meets World, which we'd never do, and it would never get. We would never do that. But Boy Meets World is probably the show that Dan will never watch, that I have as much passion for as you had, Steven Universe. But the downside of that is Boy Meets World is probably on reflection not as clever as Steven Universe. So it wouldn't be as I don't know if it would be Dan learning to love the show. It might be. But yeah.
Do you think that question is trickier for you because we both watch a lot of the stuff we both love, but I probably find I have less of a social life, so I watch more TV than you. So therefore, it's harder for you to find a show that I'm not watching that you are.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to say the social life thing, but yeah, I think it's certainly. I think most of the shows. I think if we had the time, the actual answer would be something like The West Wing or Battlestar Galactica that I would like to watch.
Yeah. The one I would choose next, if I could honestly choose anything, would be Person of Interest.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you've said that a few times. Actually.
I think it would be Fringe Observers too. Basically, it would be very much that format. And to be honest with you, I think ultimately it's a better show. In many ways, I think it doesn't have the lows that Fringe had. I think Fringe had a few later seasons that had problematic episodes or elements, but I think Person of Interest is a more consistent show. I don't know if it ever reaches quite Fringe's amazing highs, but it never reaches Fringe's lows either. So it's a much more sort of like consistent, steady as she goes. But it's incredible. It's a very high level.
I think the question is, but the question's probably not framed with that framing in mind. The question is probably more framed with what's a show that you love, that you've seen all of, that Dan's not seen, where the roles would be reversed. And the answer is probably Boy Meets World.
Yeah, and for me, I think it would be to get you to watch Avatar.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Last Airbender is the show I love the most that you've not seen, I think.
Well, that would be Steven Universe 2, wouldn't it? Basically, you pitched Fringe Observers 2 and Steven University 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a certain genre of shows that I really like that you don't seem to watch many of. So, yeah, I guess that makes sense that's what that would end up being. Where are we at? Have either of you seen the new She-Ra? And do you like it if you have? I haven't seen it yet, but I like the look of it, and it's on my list, and I probably will see it at some point this summer because I'm caught up on a lot of the last season's TV now. It took me a little while to get caught up on like Flash and Arrow and all the shows. I kind of fell behind on many of them as the season went on. But yeah, once I get a bit of free time, She-Ra is on my list for sure.
I haven't seen it, I'm afraid.
Would you give it a shot?
I'm not entirely sure what it is, so probably not.
It's a bit like you know how Voltron is like an old kids show.
Oh yeah,
She-Ra was kind of like a female He-Man from back in the day, and it was a cool show, and they've done a modern day sort of new version of it. Cool. It's on Netflix, and I thought it looked kind of cool.
I tell you another actually awesome, as well as Avatar in terms of animated. The other pitch would be, because I've not seen them both, but I know how critically adored they are, would be the Batman the animated series or X-Men the animated series.
Oh, see now Batman the animated series I would do in a heartbeat because I would just love an excuse to rewatch that. It's a great show.
Yeah.
The X-Men animated series doesn't hold up as well. Sadly. It's good.
Oh, really? I heard a lot of praise for it.
No, it's a wonderful show from its time, but it's from its time. Whereas the Batman animated series, I think it holds up against modern day stuff just as well. I think the X-Men series dates worse by quite some way.
Fair enough.
Not necessarily a question of its quality at the time, but like
fair
enough. Bianca asks, have you had a sit down with Chris about why he hates animation?
Yeah, I think it's broached it sporadically throughout this, and I think there's an MBS episode, isn't there?
What we specifically talk about?
Will we talk about animated TV?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like we've done like 200 episodes at this point. Yeah, I'm just got to be somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. I think it has been touched upon. It's a weird one. I think when we did it, I was probably quite defensive. And now I would be, I think, less defensive and just be like, I think the problem, I think we have done it because I think the problem is you always look for some sort of deep psychological reason, whereas if there is one, it's so deep that I don't really think of it as a deep psychological reason. I just think of it as it's just not a genre I gravitate to in the way that there are certain genres you don't. So yeah. Well, to be fair, no, that's not fair. Hold on, that's not fair. Animation is not a genre; it's a style, it's a format.
I agree. Last question, and this is a quick one, I think. Will the new Steven Universe movie / musical win an Emmy? In the tradition of my predictions being false, no, never, not going to happen ever. Because if I predicted it would, then it won't happen. So I'm going to very firmly predict it will not happen, so it will.
They've won one recently, didn't they?
Yes, they did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it will. Yeah.
Cool. There you go.
If there's a category that it might not, because of categories madness, they might
Wait,
not
was it
feel
Emmy
they
that won
can class it
recently?
as something.
I'm having second thoughts now. It won a GLAAD award, I remember. No, it did. It got the Emmy, I'm sure. I'm going to quickly check that now.
I can't remember.
God damn it. Yes, it did.
Cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation.
Yeah, I'm sure we mentioned it on an episode of this.
Yeah, I thought we had as well, but then when you sort of say something as fact, and then you doubt yourself because you don't want to get it wrong out of like just fear.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
One last quick. I'm gonna have a quick refresh, see if any last ones have come through. I think that's it though. No, nothing come through on Twitter. Anything else in the Discord? No, we are good to go. So yeah,
good stuff. Well, questions below for 2 weeks' time. And you want to ask in the Discord, use the hashtag podcast question.
Yep. Just so I know you don't want me to answer it in the YouTube comments. Those ones will get sufficiently ignored as always.
I like it when there's a mix. I like it when it's SU related and the more random ones like other shows and stuff. So
it can be about anything. I mean, I would say if you can keep it to SU as a theme for the one we do on this podcast, that'll be ideal. But like, I don't see.
Just if you ask 3 questions, 2 SU, one random.
Let's not encourage people to ask 3 questions.
I'm just saying. I like the mix. I like any excuse to talk about Boy Meets World, mate.
Sure.
It's a great show.
Well, it doesn't matter if the question is SU related because it turns out whether it is or isn't, we're still going to talk about other stuff anyway.
That's true.
Because it's us. Anyway.
I'll be bringing Toy Story 4 up for weeks, mate.
It's good. Very good.
You know what impressed me? Because I don't think we actually talked about it on air. Right, here's the thing.
Okay.
We might have done, and I might just be repeating myself. I went into that film. What was so impressive was I went into it going, you can convince me that you're good, but you're never going to convince me that you're necessary.
Yeah.
And I left going, I'm still not entirely sure that was necessary, but it doesn't matter because it was justified.
Yeah, you did say that to me on the phone.
In terms of the story, in terms of how fun, I think it's probably the funniest one. It's weird as well. I'd have to rewatch the other 3. But I was so impressed by that movie. And I was so ready to not be impressed by that movie.
If we're doing random movie stuff, have we talked about Rocketman yet?
No, I haven't seen it though.
Okay, I think I preferred it to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, I've heard people say that.
I think it's a better movie.
I haven't seen Yesterday either, which I really want to see.
Yesterday's also great. I think Rocketman's the better movie of those two because I think Rocketman represents Elton John and his ethos and his music better than Bohemian Rhapsody represents Queen.
Which is interesting considering so much of it is fantasy sequence and stuff.
But that's exactly why it works.
Yeah.
But it's not actually. I think that's going a bit far. I say to say so much of it is fantasy. They strike a really very clever balance of those two things. When Rocketman goes into fantasy, you're almost taken by surprise because you don't you just about forgotten the last time that happened. So you almost get like a jolt of what? Oh, right. Every time it happened, that's kind of fun. Like, that's really good. That's one of the things I love about it. It's a really well-made movie. Dexter Fletcher has done an absolutely masterful job with that movie.
Nice.
Yeah. So
cool. There you go.
So there you go.
Just a
random question we've asked ourselves at the end. But yeah, thanks for listening. Come back next week. Oh, and this is... I'm going to say this without as much nerdy fanboy excitement as I can. Next week, we'll be discussing the trailer for Steven Universe, the movie. Okay, I got away with it. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped. Possibly, and because I stand by my theory from the previous episode that I think we're going to get an out-of-context song from the movie too, so that excites me.
Which is very exciting.
Yeah, not planting a flag, but I think there's a strong possibility if they've got a whole movie's worth of songs. The odds that one or two of them out of context would not spoil anything seems likely, because if you go back through the back catalogue of Steven Universe songs, that is, there's plenty that you could pick out and do it. Look what happened with Escapism, released a year and a half before the episode that it's from. So there's plenty of scope for that, I think. So I think that is a strong option.
I think that would be exciting.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
cool.
That's
there
next
we go.
week. We're going to discuss all that stuff. We'll probably talk about the panel in general as well, and anything said that in the question and answers or around it. So it won't just be the trailer, but we'll be I think the trailer will dominate the discussion because that'll be the most tangible thing. Yeah. But then we'll get to what was said. Maybe we'll split it into 2 parts in the end. If it's really long, we'll do a half that's specifically on the trailer and a half that's on the panel. If there's a lot to say, but that's really going to depend on how interesting the panel is. And last year, it wasn't great. So I'm not. The content they showed was great. They showed a whole episode, and they showed the teaser for the movie. The panel was very it might as well not existed. It was a lot of fluff and banter amongst the cast, which is lovely to see, but doesn't give us, the audience, any information. It's great for the people in the room.
But I was going to say, play to the people in the room. They gave the people in the room an episode, so I suspect the people in the room were happy.
Well, we got the episode too because that's what forced them to release it online so early. So I'm not complaining about I'm not giving them any shit for the content they brought, but I do think the panel itself was very soft. you know, there was very just light bantery between the cast, and it's nice to see them little joking about and stuff. But you know, I wanna, you know, with Change of Mind just having happened, there are questions for Rebecca Sugar, I think. So
yeah, fair enough.
No. Cool. Yeah, so there you go. I guess I just end it. I've been Dan Newland.
A bizarre ending, but I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you next week as we discuss the content released at San Diego Comic-Con, including the trailer for Steven Universe the movie.